Brain mod? Is that what you're saying? I don't know what the word you're saying is.
Braille mod. Braille mod.
What's the word?
Braille mod.
Braille, got it.
Flight 3.
Of the Hakan Lancair 320.
322.
We're watching car crashes. Flight 3 was our third attempt to try to finish the first flight card, and it ended pretty much like the...
What happened?
Got hot again. As always, thank you to our sponsors, Butler Parachute, you make the best parachute in the business, and to all of our new Patreon supporters, as well as our old Patreon supporters. Ow! Thank you.
Let's start with what I did since last time. I checked all the spark plugs, the ignition, the mags and everything, had the plugs tested, cleaned and everything. They all worked. Then I took it to the mechanic and he looked at it and he said there's one plug on cylinder 1 that is fouling more than the others. So even if it works. So he replaced that one with another type of plug. I can't remember the name of it right now, but it's less foul.
Okay.
So right now the engine runs fine, and if it would foul, it's easier to clean it than it was before.
Okay.
So that's a good thing. So and then I looked into the throttle body and all that kind of stuff, and I decided to replace the throttle body. I bought a carb, and I bought the one that was set to the richest mixture of the ones that the 4 SPA range. Turned out that that one was running too rich as well, similar to the throttle body.
Okay.
So what I did, I bought a replacement main jet for it that they developed fairly recently, and it has a better nozzle, better distribution of the
pepper house?
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So I installed that the other day and I ran it, and it runs well. It doesn't seem to have that rich mixture issue as we had before. So you can see there's this little dead band here before it goes. This one is better, but it's a little bit here, but you know, it should still work fine. Let's see, what else did I do? I did the braille mod on the baffle, the aft baffle for cylinder 3.
So Justin, you mentioned the braille mod before, you weren't here. He said it like something people should know. I never heard it before. You heard the braille mod?
I don't know what the word you're saying is.
Got it. That's both of us. We both now admitted we don't know what you're talking about. It's a big moment.
Is that like a brain mod? Is that what you're saying?
It's a cooling fix. Let's see if I can.
Like brain.
So he has some photos of it, but how about this? I'll brief Justin and you tell me if I'm making sense.
Yes.
Okay. So the back deck of so the air comes in through the inlet, right, and then hits that back deck and would go behind the most rear cylinder.
So we're on the cold side. Yeah.
We're on the cold side, top of the barrels. Yeah. So it comes through, and it sounds like what he did was where it would hit the back wall and go through. The idea is that whole area is too tight, so you pull it back.
Oh, so it's like a bucket.
Gives it room to kind of turn the corner.
Cool.
And it's just over the barrel portion of the cylinder, not the head, is what I saw in the photos. Is it?
No, it's the head.
It's just the head.
Yeah. because the barrel has enough cooling. It's just the head. It's the casting of the cylinder. The fins basically it has no fins where the two casting molds end. So it's the same thing as cylinder 2, front side. Because that's sort of reversed on cylinder 3.
Okay.
So they have the same casting, but in the back, if there's no fins for the head, there's no airflow, right?
Yeah, it's just if they put the baffling right up against it, there's no airflow, right?
Exactly. So the Braille mod is basically a channel that you open up the baffle and you build a doghouse, if you will, that gets the air around the head and then down to the lower portion of the cylinder.
Cool.
That was 4?
3.
So then it's going forward across the bottom fins.
Yes.
Understood.
Exactly. So that one is a sort of a well-known fix for temperature issues on number 3, because number 3 always seems to be the issue.
What's the word?
Braille mod.
Braille, got it.
The guy's name that came up with it
Sure.
is Braille, and it was for Cardinal at the time, but it's
Cool.
used.
We should all be so lucky as to have a cooling mod named after.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, exactly.
So I found some information on the Braille mod. There's a link in the description for the video that has some more details on George Braille and his recommended cooling fixes, as well as some other stuff.
Be Alpha, and it's Glitter Flight 2, that's Glitter 1 and Glitter 2, and it's Glitter 2 reporting.
As promised, up next I'm going to show the pre-flight briefing. So in this briefing you can see a great example of something that I've seen. Basically what it comes down to is if you've been working the same test card unsuccessfully for many flights, it gets harder and harder to brief that test card with the proper due diligence to the testing of the day. So you can see it in my posture, you can hear it in Justin's voice. Since we've already been through this and unsuccessfully, it gets harder and harder every time you make that run up the mountain to take it seriously. So this is one of the biggest differences I saw when I was doing production flight tests at the very end of my time with Mooney. In experimental flight test or research and development type work, typically you're building everything for a moment, right? You're building for that high speed card, or in our case maybe we're trying to set a record or make it to Reno. But in that production environment, it's much more of like a 9 to 5, right? Where you kind of have to be ready every day for months and months and months and months. And with that comes a different type of energy. So also, Justin and I have been a part of this in more big company, more formal type environments, right? You get up really early in the morning and you do your brief, and then there's a delay and the airplane sits on the runway for an hour, and then you taxi back, and then you get out of the airplane and you go debrief your attempt, and then okay, never mind, you get back in the airplane and you're like, do we do another brief? Do we do a beta brief? Do we need to eat lunch? Get back in the airplane, start the motor. Oh, it happens again. And then you get out of the airplane, you climb, go back in, get up, be ready to perform, and then down. And then get up and ready to perform, and then down. And sometimes this happens for days and days and days. What's interesting about this brief is you can see it. I think you can see it. You can see it on me, you can see it on Justin, you can even see it on Hakan. And I think it's a great example of some of the challenges that are not so obvious, but are absolutely a part of the job. So detailed brief, you're here. So we'll pull it out, we'll point it this way. We'll both get started, you'll be able to hear us, and you're gonna lead us out. You'll take comms down to the far end. We'll do our run-ups, thumbs up, back and forth. And then you're gonna take off, and you're gonna call my brake release. So I want 2 calls before the actual brake release call. 30 seconds and 10 seconds is typical, but whatever works. You've talked to the tower, they're aware of what's coming. Glitter 1, Glitter 2. Okay. As usual, Justin briefed the tower on our procedures before we started for the day. So takeoff, we're watching CHTs on the climb out. We'll go through the limits in a second. Assuming oil and CHTs are under control, then it's going to be a climb at 125 knots indicated to 7,500 feet with that step at 4,000 for the Bravo. So it'll be left turns for a couple orbits, and then we'll start heading north. Again, timing on 4,000 and heading to 7,500 north of the field. So then once we get to 7,500, we're going to lean over 2,500 RPM in full black knob. to VH or 143 maneuvering speed, whatever comes first. We're going to hang out for 10 minutes. Then we're going to extend the gear, or slow down, extend the gear. Gear speed is 120. Yeah, VLE 122. So we're going to, gear extension at 100 was for a handling check at 100. And then we were going to decel to 77 for a handling check, and then a simulated go around. So the simulated go around I'm less worried about, but the decel handling checks, we haven't done anything anywhere near that slow. So that's a big win for the day. No wind-up turn planned.
Probably want to add 10 to all those numbers anyway, right?
Right, so these are all CAS we need to go to indicated. So plus 10 on everything. So it may not be clear here. The problem is on the previous flight we had found an error in the pitot-static system, but my test card that I had printed out didn't have the calculated error. So all I had was the calibrated airspeeds. I needed to write down the indicated airspeeds so we could make up for that error. And then we'll come back and do the RTB. We're planning on a flaps up landing with a, it says 95 knot approach. We're going to use 110 for approach based on what we learned on the previous flights. As far as chase procedures, I expect you in a 45-degree cone. You'll be doing all the comms before takeoff. And then just until we get out of the delta.
Yeah.
And then coming back in, you can lead them coming back in.
Yeah. So I'll just be reporting glitter flight when we're formed up, and then we're split in year 1 and 2.
Got it. So we talked about work areas and alternate airports. Went through the test card. Shut down. We'll come back in here like we did before and then just point to the east. Transponder procedures. So you're squawking all day and I'm on standby. And then you want to do an ADS-B check when we're out there. So once we get out of the class Delta, we'll turn on the transponder and we can check flight aware after we get down. We talked about frequencies. We talked about our comm plan and call signs. Fuel. So we have two main fuel tanks and a selector between. There is no both.
Right.
It's full of gas right now. So let's plan on out to the practice area before we start the 10 minutes, and then we'll switch. So we're on right now, so before we start the 10 minutes, we'll switch to the left. We'll come back on the left. So for limits, I have a CHT 400 degrees in the climb.
We can go more than that. I'd say climb 420.
420?
Yeah.
Copy, 420. And then cruise 380.
400.
Okay.
Just to see if it will drop. You know, I don't want to cancel it to see.
I know we've talked about this before, but it's important that I point out that the number, 420 degrees for a cylinder head temperature limit is not the important thing. What's important is that the owner gave us a CHT limit and then we followed that on the flight. If the owner wants to fly with a 300 degree CHT limit or a 700 degree CHT limit, I don't care. The important thing is that there's a contract between the owner and myself about how the airplane will be operated. Oil temp 215. Okay. Stall speed, flaps down at 52. We're not swinging the flaps today, but that's what you predicted.
Yeah.
Stall clean, 70 knots. You're rotating it between 70 and 75. Flap extension speed, 100 knots. Gear extension speed, 122. Maneuvering speed, 143. VNE, 235. Again, well beyond where we're going. Limit load factor with the flaps up, 3.8. Negative 1.52. Again, the flaps aren't going down, but we have a 2G limit with the flaps down. As far as how to run the motor, I'm planning on full black knob, full red knob, and boost pump, and full prop on takeoff. And then prop back to 2500 as soon as we're sort of up with the gear up. Things are happening quick, we'll try to pull it back sooner. If we're pulling way back on the black knob and still running away on CHTs, then we'll land, but you'll be there. But yeah, so the takeoff power is everything forward, and then climb power would be 2500, but otherwise everything forward. Okay.
So the carb has an enrichment feature. So full power gives extra fuel as well. So if you pull back,
even a little bit.
Yeah, it could get leaner.
Yeah.
So
Understood.
we'll see. It all depends on where we end up.
Understood.
That's the only reason we pull it out is if you're heading downhill anyway.
Right.
At least under the shelf over here.
Yeah.
Okay. Emergency procedures, the gear extension. It's the valve on the side.
Yep.
And the valve dumps the up side of the hydraulic system.
So the way it is, where is it right now? It's facing down, right?
Pointing down, yes.
Yeah, so that's the
I'm going to cut out the emergency gear extension brief since we saw it on the last video. If you want to see it, it's in Flight 2. All right. Now in the room. Me, Justin.
Good.
Plan is to put you in chase.
Okay.
He's
last
got.
time.
Yep.
So just keep the camera running the whole time.
Yep.
And if you see interesting stuff, point it out.
All right, it's gonna be awesome.
He's good.
And glitter flight push tower. Glitter check. Check. Glitter check. Check. Romana Tower, glitter 2 is ready for takeoff. 27 will be airborne pickup on glitter 1.
Glitter 2, Romana Tower, hold short runway 27.
Holding short 27, glitter 2.
Romana Tower, Atlas 21 to flight of 2 Cobra, Delta 7 miles to the northwest. Request low approach, runway 27, departure to the northeast.
Atlas 21, roger, enter right down in runway 27 and report to beam the tower.
Atlas 21, welcome.
Hopefully, that guy's still on the upwind. We'll definitely go after this guy.
Glitter 2, hold short runway 27.
Holding short 27, glitter 2.
CHTs.
Yep.
Oil 120,
man.
cylinder 329.
Copy.
Glitter flight, need to keep the transmissions to a minimum. I'm going to have 5 in pattern, including you.
Roger.
This would have been a great moment to realize just how busy the airport was, and therefore how that might affect the flight.
Glitter 2, follow the Cessna, passing the tower on the upwind, make left close traffic, runway 27, cleared for takeoff.
Clear for takeoff 27, upwind traffic in sight, glitter 2. Any chance glitter 2 can get the right traffic?
Traffic.
Glitter 2, continue upwind, and I'll call your right crosswind for right traffic.
Glitter 2, copy.
Glitter 1 Tower, you ready to go?
We're ready to go.
Glitter 1, follow your company traffic, remain on the upwind, I'll call your right crosswind, runway 27, cleared for takeoff.
Tower, glitter 2 here, so we're going to do an airborne pickup, which means I got to be on final for him to do the takeoff roll.
Glitter 2, roger, continue your upwind for 2 miles, then right crosswind is approved, report to beam the tower on the right downwind.
Copy, upwind 2 miles and we'll report right downwind to beam.
Glitter 1, cancel takeoff clearance, hold short runway 27.
Glitter 1, hold short 27.
How busy the controller was on this flight was not a small factor.
Romana Tower, Atlas 21, flight of 2, beam tower right downwind 27.
Atlas 21N flight, make sure approach your number 1, runway 27, cleared low approach. After low approach, west departure is approved.
Okay, short approach, number 1, runway 27, cleared low approach.
So this point is the helicopters are flying over and the whole traffic pattern is held up and we're sitting there watching CHTs go through the roof. I'm thinking about just exactly how hard it was going to be to meet the goals of that day's flight.
Northeast.
Cylinder head temperature.
435, Jesus.
Cylinder head temperature.
I think my personal biggest takeaway from this flight was just how busy the airspace was and that we didn't have an abort criteria for that. Sitting on the ground while we waited for the engine overheat didn't exactly push the program forward and certainly limited the value that was added for the day.
Glitter 2, right downwind to beam.
Glitter 2, once you're being the numbers, make a wide left 360 for spacing and report back on the downwind.
Copy, left 360, report on downwind, glitter 2. And glitter 2 is on the right downwind, 27.
Glitter 2, your number 3, following a Cessna on a 2.5 mile left base. Let me know once you have them in sight.
Roger, number 3, looking for traffic, glitter 2. Traffic in sight.
Glitter 2, roger.
Way the fuck out.
Glitter 2, number 3, following the traffic left base to final, runway 27, cleared for the option.
Clear the option number 3, and we'll need glitter 1 on the runway as we come down final.
Glitter 2, copy all.
Glitter 1 calling from the ground. Just confirm we're left traffic on this go.
Glitter 1, affirmative, hold short, runway 27.
Holding short.
Don't like this.
It's definitely a handful.
Cessna 019er, no delay off the runway, contact ground 121.65.
I'll delay off the runway over to ground 019er.
Alright, we'll turn final here.
Cessna 019er, continue on the taxiway Alpha, please.
Hopefully that guy goes quickly.
Hopefully.
We'll do some S-turns out here. And Glitter 2 needs a 360 out here.
Glitter 2, tight left 360 is approved, traffic 4.5 mile final.
Roger, tight left 360 and looking for Glitter 1 on the runway.
So here you can see just how hard Justin's working to try to do 360s and S-turns in order to try to line up that brake release call so that when he calls brake release, he's in position just at the right time in order to do the airborne pickup. All made much more complicated by everything that was going on in the airspace.
Glitter 1, runway 27, cleared for takeoff at your discretion to join company traffic.
Glitter 1, clear for takeoff, 27.
30 seconds. 10 seconds. Brake release now. Who's on board?
Q430.
Glitter flight, left traffic is approved.
Glitter flight.
And Glitter's done for the day.
Copy. Tower Glitter 1's going to be landing ASAP.
Uh-oh. And Glitter 1, Roger, continue on the downwind, you'll be following the Cherokee on a half-mile final, let me know when you have them in sight.
Roger, we're looking.
What the hell happened?
Syrian 1 Lima Alpha, I just need you to
He's probably just trying to manage temperature.
Down for now and report
Still their head?
final for
Yeah.
27, you can climb.
Oh, fuck.
Glitter 2 has traffic over the numbers.
Glitter 2, Roger, number 2 following the traffic, runway 27, clear to land.
Clear to land number 2, Glitter flight.
Gear going, coming down.
I see gear. Say airspeed.
110.
Copy.
Motor Tower, experimental 446 from Bravo flight at 2, Romeo overhead.
11 Lima Alpha is turning 4 mile final.
Cherokee 10 Whiskey, extend upwind 1.5 miles and crosswind is approved.
10 Whiskey, up 1.5 miles and crosswind.
Experimental 4461 Bravo in flight, Ramona Tower, pattern altitude 2,900.
2 miles
Advantage to the runway.
2900, 61 Bravo.
He's down.
Yeah, 2 feet. 1 foot.
Feel good?
Yep, he's good.
What happened?
Got hot again. That was cylinder number 2, it was 451 when I pulled power downwind to beam. But I didn't want to start pulling power. You know, the rule was power in till power off. That's what we briefed. So let me close the canopy, sorry. All right, so we're debriefing flight 3 of the Hakan 320. I came out, pushed it out, all that stuff went well. Justin came over, got you strapped in, and then came over. I appreciate that, Justin. That was a nice little moment. Kind of helped me get my head in the game, so thank you for that. Went to the, closed the canopy, got everything locked down, and started the engine. All that stuff went pretty nominally. Started pretty quick. All that stuff was easy. We hadn't done a great job of briefing.
Fine.
Hadn't done a great job of briefing first freak, right? We didn't follow where we were going to check in. So that
No, you did great though.
So I just went to the brief, which was ground was the first frequency we talked about. So I went to ground.
Cool.
We met on ground. That worked. Handoff to tower happened down there, so we taxied down. Taxi out all seemed fine to me. You could already tell the airport was blistering. Got down there, run up. By the time I looked up for the thumbs up, I could tell you guys have been waiting there for a while, and I just was trying to like double, triple check everything because
We weren't going to go anywhere anyway, so it didn't really matter.
that's a good point. Run up was real clean, no mag drop, nothing weird there. Prop cycle like it should.
So the engine runs better. Yeah.
So that stuff all seemed good. That was with full black knob and fuel pump, or full red knob. Sorry.
Yep.
And fuel pump off. Waited for about a half hour, and then Justin took off. And then they sent Justin, go check out LA. And then, after he got on his way back from Long Beach, he came in. The military helicopters went by. Your airborne pickup, I'd be curious to see the footage on how it went, because that was some terrible geometry you were stuck with. I was watching, I was like, this is not, like you're straight in, so you have no geometry to work. So like either you get the call right or you don't. Right?
It wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be.
Good.
We were high and like, I might have passed you for just a hair, but I never saw you come out the back of my wing, so.
Cool.
Yeah, it worked out really well. And then I just tipped the wing down right as you were breaking ground. I was like, fuck yeah.
There are victories in here. So power up, check RPM 2660 max rev. So
Because of the hot, humid day, probably. I had 26, 80, 90 a couple of days ago. Depends on the.
We checked it. It wasn't 2200, right? So, but we checked it. Okay. And it didn't over rev to 3000, so I continued with the takeoff. Airborne, pitch forces, all that stuff felt great. I think it was some warning had dropped it off the RPM page. So I had to fiddle with it after I was airborne, got the RPM, pulled back to 25, got that, then gear up. So if I was later in the gear attraction, that's what that was.
No, that's right on time.
It felt all right?
Yeah.
Right then, gear up, look back down, and I was 420.
On head.
And I was like, did I just see 420? And it was 425. And then I turned crosswind, it was 430. I'm like, am I going to do a 180 back in? Not even with 15 guys in the back.
Yeah, right.
Someone's going to die.
And that was number 2.
So then on to downwind. And so just first the decision matrix. We had said before the flight that we were going to stay power all the way up because pulling the power would reduce the mixture. So stood the power up. It just kept lowering the nose, lowering the nose. I think we ended up at like 125, 130 knots indicated. So we didn't get stupid fast. Any idea what the climb rate was doing that?
I never got below you until you were like halfway downwind, and I didn't realize you were out at 130. So I was like, way sucked. Caught up to you as you were turning base.
And I'm watching I know there's guys in the pattern, and he's talking about the guy in final. We called the emergency. I think my call was, we're done for the day.
Yep.
And then you related to him that we were done, and then he told us to extend the downwind, and I'm like, here we go.
Yeah, right.
This is it, because at that point I'm like 435, 440, screaming up. It hung at like 448, and I almost made the call. He said not to make a lot of radio calls.
Yeah.
But I said, I almost made the call like temperature's under control. Or not turn reversal, but
yeah, right.
hold it. And then 449, and then 450, and so I'm waiting for them to give me to pull power, right? To tell me that we're clear land, I can pull power. So we were about downwind to beam when I pulled power, and that's why I saw 451 for just a second. Chopped the power, and it came off pretty quick. We were high enough. It was probably the steepest approach I've had to do in the airplane. But as I'm like, wow, this is really steep, and I was like, for this airplane, this is not a steep approach.
Yeah.
Anyway, so you checked airspeed. I was showing 110 knots. You asked me for it, but you didn't give it back.
Yeah, I was just trying to, because I was, again, high and I couldn't dive down on you, so I was just wondering what you were doing. We hadn't talked in a while. I was like, hey, are you... It
was weird not having the comms that we normally have.
Yeah.
I mean, I think we had to be respectful for what the tower was asking for. But
definitely,
I would have liked to be giving you these updates, like 420. 430.
Yeah,
right. So that you understood the severity of the situation. If only because if it had nuked, you would have had some.
We would have no data.
You'd be like, wow, I don't know, you just like pushed it into that field over there.
Yeah.
The only thing I heard was immediate return or something like that.
Done for the day.
Yeah, he said done for the day, and then I said land ASAP.
Yeah, late land ASAP.
Yeah. That's my new phrase for it's not an emergency, but come on, man.
Come on, man. The 210's like, can I get a short approach?
Yeah, right?
Anyway.
All right.
So So got did the same PIO in the flare again.
I saw it.
At least I'm consistent. Same PIO in the flare, and then just as I was pulling off the runway, checked oil temp at 205.
I think that's okay.
Came back in here, shut down with the mixture. Fuel pump was on the whole time. Red knob was all the way forward the whole time, and until downwind beam, black knob was all the way up. Prop came back to 2500 before the gear retraction, and 2500 all the way. I didn't push it back up for the landing, so it was 25 for the rest of the day. So let me just make sure I got all my notes. Yep, that's everything I have. What did you see from Chase?
No black puffs. That's
No.
a good sign.
Okay, so the mixture might be a little more stable now?
Yeah.
Yeah, so we launched, he said 2 miles. I think I cut him off.
Yeah.
We launched upwind. I think it's the only time I've seen 2 traffic on upwind, which is maybe a new one for me, but.
2 traveling up.
Yeah, so I asked for right because I didn't want to deal with that shit. Saw the helicopters, did a 360. He cleared me to land, which, I don't know, maybe I didn't do a good
Oh
enough
yeah, Paulie told me to take off right after
Yeah,
that.
well there was that.
Yeah.
And now I like re-explained him again what an airborne pickup is. And I'm pretty sure it was the guy I was talking to on the phone, so. Yeah. So I reminded him on the takeoff, or on the upwind I reminded him, turn downwind, and then he cleared you to take off while I was still way out there. And I was like, okay, well, explain it again.
Yes.
Yeah, no, he cleared me for the
You
option.
For the option, you were like, I need him on the
Right.
runway. And then you were like, by the way, we're waiting for Elliot to be on the runway.
Yeah, that's what it was. So yeah, then turned base, and like, I thought the guy that was on final was a touch and go, but he was full stop. So then I did a couple S turns out there, like wide S turns, like from left downwind back to right downwind. Like, I hope there's no traffic over here.
Because I'm clearing the area.
And then I asked him for a 360 right before he cleared you onto the runway. And then I worked the estimating visual line of sight to work the pickup. I think it worked really well. I was a little late on brake release call, which made me a little slow, but I wasn't unsafe.
The power was back further than I usually am when you say brake release, and it took longer than I would have expected for the engine to spool up.
I was going to say, I expected the acceleration to happen quicker, and I'm coming up and I was like, huh.
He's not moving.
Is he aborted already?
No, that's...
I didn't think that.
That's on me.
No,
you said 10 seconds, and I started saying, I'm like, you need to be on it. And just as I started really at it, you said brake release. I'm like, well, we're late. So,
yeah, it's all yeah, so then lost you under the wing on the takeoff roll, dipped the wing and saw that you had just gotten airborne, and then kind of diverted left, opened left, came back right, and your gear were coming up. And I was about to swing underneath you when you pushed. Well, I crossed over behind you, I was still high, and then you were starting to turn left, and I was like, oh, this is gonna be perfect, and so I dived to go under you, and then you're like pushing, and I was like, ah, shit.
The only last thing was, to your request, from here to there was wide open throttle, 2,500 RPM, and relatively stable airspeed.
Yeah.
And that was to try to see, because every time we land, it's like, well, was it starting to recover or not? And I think I can say without a doubt that at 451, it still wasn't hot enough to reject all the heat. So, I did not check fuel flows on takeoff. I wonder if that's...
It doesn't matter at this point.
But anyway, so yeah, Justin.
On my upwind climb, because I was looking at traffic and doing other things, I wasn't watching head temperatures, and I ended up at 435.
Okay.
Oh, really? I heard the high CHT, yeah.
So my alarm was up at 435. I saw 436 because I immediately pulled power, but like it was already heat soaked from the flight down. But what did we say? We have twice the cooling area in that.
Yeah.
Twice or
as
four
much
times?
But it's at least twice. Yeah.
Yeah. So Tango has either twice or 2 or 4 times more cooling inlet than you, and I was having problems. So.
Exactly. And we cooked this one on the ground, 380 when we took off. So I mean,
yeah.
Chances of success were pretty small, fortunately.
Well, but even at 120, it was not recovering.
Yeah.
So.
Again, thanks for watching, and let us know in the comments if you see anything that we didn't see.